So I'm en route on my way home from the US of A. I'm in a hotel room for this evening until about 4 in the morning. And there's a bit of traffic sound outside, so hopefully it's not too crazy, but obviously it drives me bonkers just because background sound drives me bonkers. So I'm going to get right into it and share some more emails coming in. All right. Now listen to this. This is titled Coastal Salish Indians, Stick Indians, Sietco. Hello, Steve. Thank you for what you're doing. I was lucky enough to have lived on the Olympic Peninsula of Washington State for about 7 years, 1980 to 87. My best friend to this day is a member of the Quinault tribe. I still go out and salmon/steelhead fish with him at least once a year. We were hunting in the middle of the Quinault Reservation, miles from anywhere. We had driven down some old logging roads, then hiked in another couple of miles down some impenetrable overgrown roads. He had me set up on a spur overlooking a valley with a creek running through it. The terrain was reprod slash logged off area that had been replanted with small trees and extremely hard to walk through. There was about a 60-foot drop off 20 yards in front of me. It was blocked off from my view. I could only see about half of the valley. He left to hike into another spot. After about 10 minutes, I began to hear voices coming from the part of the valley I couldn't see. It sounded like children's voices. I'm guessing 8 to 10 of them. The best way to describe it, it is like walking past a children's playground. Children playing, singy-like. Can plainly hear them. Just can't make out what they're saying. I thought that some of the tribe must be having a picnic down there, and this went on for almost an hour. I was starting to get hungry and entertained the thought of going down there. I knew they just had to have sandwiches or something to eat. How to scare children 101. Come out of the bush, burst out of the bushes with a rifle and ask for their lunch. Just kidding. About that time, my friend came back. I said, hey, let's go down there and see if they have any sandwiches. They must be having a picnic. He looked startled and asked me, what do you hear? I said, kids playing, can't you hear them? They're just right down there. His eyes got big and said, let's go. I mildly protested, then he put his hands on my shoulders and said, we are leaving now. I was completely confused, baffled, and unnerved. He could not hear the voices. He told me on the ride back to the village of Queets to ask one of the tribal elders. We sat around the elder's table drinking coffee, and he asked what I heard. I gave him a full account of what happened to me. He sat there shaking his head in a knowing way. The first words out of his mouth were, quote, never go looking for them, end quote. He said they are called little people, stick Indians, or soul catchers. They want you to come looking for you? Probably a typo. They want you to come looking for them. I'm guessing you meant then you get lost, then steal your soul. They were speaking directly to me. That is why my friend could not hear them. They had both heard the voices at some time in their life, but were taught from an early age to never go looking for them. And if it was ever to happen to me again, to speak out in a loud voice, leave me alone, I'm not bothering you, and to leave the area. Thankfully, I never did hear them again. In regards to Bigfoot, the Coastal Salish people call them the Ancient Ones. They believe that they are actually a part of their tribe who broke off eons ago to live what they call the old ways. They have masks and dances that date back several hundred years. Another name I heard them call them was Sietco. They are never to be harmed or shot at. If you encounter one, never look directly in the eye. They are never alone, but travel in family groups. Usually if they are in an area and they do not want you around, they will scream or throw rocks, leave. I used to hike and fish and backpack extensively on the peninsula. I've never seen one, but I have friends who I would entrust with my life who have, and that's good enough for me. I did have rocks thrown at me one time. This was before I even knew about the rock throwing. I thought I was another backpacker. I wasn't afraid, just extremely angry. I yelled at whoever it was to stop. PLS, come out and let's settle this like men. I got back on the trail, which was muddy, hiking out that day. No other boot prints. No one parked at the trailhead. I guess I'm glad they didn't come out. Ha. I'm a strong Christian, and I'll never let these things keep me from the woods and outdoors. There are a couple of Bible verses that I stand on when in the woods. The first comes from the book of Job. Quote, "Wild animals will leave you alone. Dangerous animals will be at peace with you," end quote. The second is Luke 10:19. Quote, "I've given you authority over all the power of the enemy." I told a few people my experience, and after about the second eye roll, I stopped. Thank you so much for allowing me to get this off my chest. God bless you and your family, Steve. What are you doing? Joe H. Thanks for the email, Joe. Appreciate that, man. I love hearing from our First Nations people. Sounds kind of creepy and terrifying, doesn't it? Soul catchers. Kind of bizarre. I wonder what the power of a human soul gives to alleged demons or the dark side. You know what I mean? My brain goes straight through to, why would you want to do that? Then you got to feed and house us and keep us. You know, what are you going to get out of that? Obviously, I don't know enough about that dark side. Hopefully, I never will. Anyway. And quick note, if you ever do hear children playing in a forest or a field somewhere and you're hunting, please don't burst out of the bushes with a firearm and ask them for their lunch. Okay? Probably wouldn't be too good for those kids. They'd be scarred for life. Or maybe their caretaker will put a hole in you right off the bat to protect them. Who knows? Just kidding, Joe. It's kind of funny. Well, not kind of funny, but in a way it's almost like a lot of our souls have been captured here on Earth today. Anyway, isn't it? Somewhat similar. Now, what's this next one here? Mark this as red. ESP and Strange Encounters is the title of this email. Hi, Steve. Thanks for you and your platform. I'm now a 73-year-old goat who has been a horseman all my life. I have had numerous ESP events during my life, which started in 1958. When I was 7, standing in the back seat of our car, I told my dad, "Slow down, watch out for the horses in the road." About 2 or 3 miles later, Dad rounded a curve, and there were 4 horses grazing along the edge of the road. My mom's expecting and went to the hospital, leaving me with a neighbor, watching cartoons, when I suddenly said to her, quote, "My little brother just died," end quote. A few minutes later, the phone rang, and my mother had in fact miscarried a 6-month-old male. That's sad. Airplanes are a particular strange item that I am somehow connected to. One night while playing cards with friends, I said, quote, "A plane just crashed on the mountain at Cumberland Gap, Tennessee." In fact, the paper headliner the next day described the event. Next, I was at a car auction in Georgia and left when it was over. It was a very foggy night, and we came up on a GHP roadblock. The trooper told us we had to detour due to a bad wreck. I told my friend with me it wasn't a wreck, it was a plane crash. He said, "You're crazy." But in fact, a small plane had in fact lost power and crashed into a convenience store at the end of the runway. In 1993, I was standing outside Nally Acura on Cobb Parkway. Across the street was Dobbins Air Force Base. We loved watching fighter jets take off and land. February 93, a C-130 Hercules was on the runway. I told my friend, "Oh shit, watch this." The plane roared down the runway, lifted off, banked hard, and crashed, killing all aboard. I've had so many other things happen, I could go on forever. I love to hunt, and anything outdoors has always lured me into the wild, but I have learned to tune into nature as well. I've avoided a bear encounter more than once, and although I've never seen a Bigfoot with my eyeballs, I have with my gift, scary even then. What? That was confusing. Hold on a minute. I've avoided a bear encounter more than once, and although I have never seen a Bigfoot with my eyeballs, I have with my gift, scary even then. Okay, just missing a little punctuation. That's why I did that, read that awkwardly. Sorry. And that sounds a little creepy. While hunting in Tennessee once, I watched an eagle snatch a 4 to 5 pound bass from the lake, and in my head I heard that was cool. It was, But then I felt a strange feeling that something was watching me. Then I heard a guttural deep roar. Need I say more? I beat it out of there. I'm now raising my 15-year-old grandson, and he loves the woods, hunting, camping, fishing, etc. He got his first deer this year. A great young man, honest as the day is long. He came home a few weeks ago and described a Bigfoot that crashed across the trail behind him as he was going to the river to fish. His eyes were as big as teacups as he told me what he saw. I love the truths you are sharing to help awaken those who are asleep. We must have a platform in order to save our nation from the evil set out to destroy our freedom. Thanks again, Dave Abbott. And you can share. Dave Abbott, sir, thank you so much. And I love hearing those kids that somehow, for whatever reason, have lost the people who are supposed to be involved with them, and others take that position. They do it right. So bravo for you, man. And thank you for coming forward. And I'm pretty certain you know that you are not the only one who has these oddities happen in their lifetime. And it's unfortunate they're called oddities because probably, I'll bet you they're actually probably normalities. Normalities? For us if we hadn't had our original skills rubbed away from us. I'm absolutely positive that's happened to us at this stage of the game. Now, here's another one. Understanding the predator Bigfoot from a Native American perspective. All right. Good morning, Steve. This is Charles Hamill. I'm a longtime listener and subscriber. In fact, I'm the person that sent you my encounter from 1974 at the Mountain Fork River at Beavers Bend State Park in southeast Oklahoma, where a 12-foot plus tall, 12 to 1,300 pound, and 22.5-inch foot Bigfoot prints came up behind me while fishing the river, and my lure hung up in the creature's chest. I remember that one. Anyway, I've been working with a very well-known sketch artist and painter, Sibylla Irwin. And here is a bust and a full-body iteration of my description of the creature in my encounter. Happy New Year, brother. I hope all is well with you and yours. All right, so then I've got another email attached underneath from the same man. The book that I am forwarding you is written by Jerry Williams, bracket lead horse or lead horse, and Ella, lead tracker E, who is Jerry's wife. I am currently in training with these wonderful Native American people of the Choctaw Nation in Oklahoma. I've been given the name War Chief, Tracker C. We train to track, locate, detour, and put down, if need be, those creatures that prove to be more of a threat to the land owners and their farm animals. We also help to track and locate persons who have been abducted or taken from their property, hiking trails, or state and national forests. Jerry Williams is from a family of medicine men of the Choctaw Nation. He is also in the running for the next chief of the Choctaw Nation. All the info in the book has come from years of tribal information and studying the issue from all parts of the world. He's also a spiritual elder of the Choctaw Nation. All right. Obviously, I don't have time to read a book right this second, but here's the photos. Pretty disturbing. That is nothing you want to see in the woods in broad daylight or at nighttime. Now listen. Here's how my brain reacts to the statements you shared. And I'm not calling anyone out. I'm not saying it's not true. I'm just an innocent learner asking direct questions. I am currently in training with these wonderful Native American people, the Choctaw Nation, Oklahoma. I've been given... Okay, blah, blah, blah. Sorry. Now listen. We train to track, locate, and detour and put down, if need be, these creatures. All right. So that means, for me, that somebody has mastered those skills and they have a history and credentials and a past successes of doing that. That means that human beings have successfully tracked, located, detoured, and even possibly put down those, quote, those creatures. All right, now listen. Where are those people? What are their examples? Where's the receipts? Is what I'm saying. I'm saying in an innocent, kind way, as though we are in a coffee shop, sitting across from each other, having a conversation, all right? And I have to say that because so many people go on the defense and offended and they get aggro. I don't get it. We're just having a conversation here, but that's a legitimate question. I mean, let's face it, I'm a professional big game guide. For me to teach you how to, quote, track, locate, detour, and even possibly put down anything, that means I've done it, right? And those before me have done it as well and have taught me how to do it. That means that's actually happened. So, when did these incidents happen? Who did it? You know what I mean? Who did it? Who successfully learned how to track them down, overpower them, and dispatch them or deter them? How'd they deter them? I need to know more. And I don't want to read it from the book. I want to hear from you, because if you are being taught this, that means a human being is passing these skills on to you. That means they've done it. You know what I mean? I want to hear from them. We also help to track and locate persons who have been abducted or taken from their property, hiking trails, or state and national forests. All right, it's another bold statement. That means that you've done this. Or, well, it says, quote, we also help to track and locate persons who have been abducted or taken from their property, hiking trails, or state and national forests. All right, who did you track down? Who was taken? What took them? What abducted them? When, where, and how many have you located? And I want to hear those people's stories that you located. Honest, valid questions. All right, man? So please, if you could, email me back, and hopefully you can answer those questions. And if you possibly have the people who are involved in these activities, we want to hear from them. Obviously, big time, right? We want to hear from them. Now, who's next? I hope I remember to put those pictures in the video. Obviously, I got B-roll here. Better than looking at a stupid hotel room, right? And this is titled, Fear and Being Scared. Hi, Steve. I sent you an email last month or so about my experience when I was in the 4th grade, 1977. I watched your last video on being scared. I find this a very interesting subject. I often wonder why, while in combat, I wasn't necessarily scared. I touched on this in my last email to you, concerned for those around me. That is, I was concerned or feared failing to lead or make the right decision that would cost one of my men their lives. I think there's a difference in fear and being scared. I fear for the future of my children because of what is going on in my country and the world. I'm scared of making the wrong decision that could hurt my family. The day I saw the Sasquatch as a child, I was terrified. I was scared to go back, but my father made me with him, and at the time I believed my dad to be fearless and invincible. Not a Sasquatch story, but my account on how I dealt with fear. Excuse me. In September 2007, I was an embedded transition team leader in Baghdad, Iraq. My area of operations was out of a place called FOB Loyalty. I had a team of 15 people. We were a joint team of myself, Marine, 8 soldiers for security, my Ranger Captain, operations, my senior NCO, U.S. Navy SEAL, 4 other soldiers, COM, Assistant Ops, NCO, Assist Ops, O, and Marine NCO. We also had 2 interpreters. On this particular day, our mission was to cross over into a compound adjacent to FOB Loyalty that housed the Ministry of Interior Border Headquarters. We suspected our Iraqi counterparts of directing rocket, mortar, and sniper fire onto FOB Loyalty. We also were tasked with finding equipment that had gone to this headquarters that were supposed to go to the Iraq-Syrian border. We thought our American higher headquarters, we were briefed this, had let them know we were coming. They didn't. We walked into the compound, entered a square, and were immediately surrounded by 150 Iraqis, supposed to be our allies, outgunned. Of course, our radio failed immediately, and I remember thinking,
Today I die here. I wasn't scared. The faces of my young girls, 4 and 1 at the time, flashed in my mind. I thought myself a failure as I failed my men, and they were going to die because of my failure to properly plan. At that moment, one of my interpreters ran out between us and the Iraqis and diffused the situation. You have to understand, the Iraqi MOI soldiers were well known to be fight us as part of the were well known to be fight us. I think he must have meant to fight us as part of the insurgency. Once we got back to our team house later in the early evening, we debriefed. I sat down on my cot, and that's when it hit me that not only did I almost die due to my failure, but I almost cost my men their lives. After that, I was very careful about who went on what patrol and weighed who they were. You see, you do fear making the wrong decision, and it is hard when you weigh the mission with the men who will execute it. It's not fun to bury those who died carrying out your orders. You cannot let the fear paralyze and keep you from doing what you do. Human beings tend to compartmentalize things in order to cope with the situation at hand. You go out a lot, and how do you deal with it? Anyway, keep passing info. I appreciate your view on things. It helps me think. By the way, I bought your book. Yes, my family still thinks I'm crazy. Maybe one day I'll pay you to take me and my son out. I don't necessarily have a desire to be in the deep woods, but I think my son needs to experience it. Couple pics. Me with my girls when I returned recovering from a rocket attack in Iraq. A pic of me in Baghdad, Sadr City. Note the Iraqis staring holes in me. He wanted to kill me. Joe. Joe, appreciate you, man. I appreciate you big time and going out of your way to send that email on fear and some of your life experiences. And I'm so happy that you survived for your family and everyone else you're going to have a positive impact on in life, man. Yeah, the Iraqi war. What a shit show. What a shit show. War is a shit show no matter what. You know what I mean? War just sucks. You're a good man, Joe. Appreciate you sending that in, man. I hope you're still here watching. Alright, now this next one, I believe this is copied from a screenshot of a couple of people having, excuse me, conversation in the comment section, I believe. Let's see if I can read it and make sense of it. At JOBird272 to Cindy, thank you for sharing. I have seen / helped a lone individual like you described in northern Minnesota and around the same time period. I can tell you that it wasn't a juvenile forest person / Sasquatch. The description you gave caught my attention. It clicked when you mentioned lemurs / sloth face. I can tell you that this individual loved apples. It was a male that got separated from his family when they came through a black abyss / portal. Humans captured him and held him captive. I also can tell you that he made it back to his family on the other side. Then there's a reply from Natural Health Inn. What? This is Cindy, and this is crazy. What do you feel it was? Was it older / bigger than what I saw? I wish I could remember the exact year, but I don't. Do you live in that area? I was visiting. Back then, a student at UMD. I would love to hear more. Then, what I can say is that this happened in the early 90s around the Leech Lake Reservation. Some of the people involved are still alive. They are not of indigenous blood. They can and will do harm. They have so-called friends in high places. I feel that he was an entirely different being / cryptid that can't live in our world. They can be here for short periods of time. His appearance didn't resemble that of a forest person / Sasquatch, which to me resembled a chimp's face with human characteristics or human faces. They are heavier and have a sturdier build. Their hair is usually a brown / reddish / black, but not always. He's not in very good shape. His coat was short hair that was a really dirty gray color because of the conditions he was in. He was kept in a very dark room with limited mobility. He had reddish-orange eyes that glowed. Like he said, like Christmas lights. He was slightly smaller in size, about 1.5 to 2 feet, head, torso, with lanky arms and legs. What? 11.5? No, 1.5 to 2 feet. Estimate, about the size of a small child, age 5 and 6. 5 or 6. He had a scream/moan/howl that he'd do about 10 a.m. every day. There were times you would hear the same call answer back multiple times. And then another reply, that is so sad. I'm grateful that he escaped. Did you see the portal? I've fished Leech Lake many times. Beautiful area. We live in central Minnesota. Love nature. Your story is very thought-provoking. Did you see the entire family that came through the portal? Did these beings communicate with you, or did someone else talk with them to get this information? Sorry for all the questions. I'm fascinated by your encounter and appreciate your time and info. All right. That is one hell, excuse me, of an exchange between two people. I would imagine it must have been on this channel. So, whoever you two are, obviously, you probably got everyone's attention here now that I shared that. And, what's up? Give us the story. Give us the details, right? Give us the details. That sounds pretty crazy. Bold statements again, right? All right. Now, I'm in another folder again to get some older emails read that were apparently missed in the past. This one's titled, Would Like to Share an Experience I Had as a Teenager. Hi Steve, my name is Craig. Just recently subscribed to your channel. Like the content and listening to people's stories as well as your own. I'd like to share with you and your listeners an experience I had when I was 17 in 1979. I grew up in the Santa Cruz Mountains of California. I was with two friends of mine, and we had hiked to a place called Eagle Del Peak in Lompico, Lompico. We called it Bald Eagle. This area bordered a wildlife refuge called Loch Lomond Reservoir. The area around Eagle Del was not accessible as it was heavily forested and an absolute poison oak hell. It was about midnight, and we had a big bonfire going. This was back in the 70s, and the area was not really developed yet. There was a dirt road that led to the top of the mountain, and at the top it had been bulldozed, so there was an open area on top, maybe 50 feet in diameter. That was the only way to get up there. We had planned to camp for the night, and we were having a great time until we heard something crashing through the forest in the distance. Excuse me. We didn't think much of it until it started to get closer and closer. It was coming up the hill from the Loch Lomond side. As it got closer, we became concerned. We were conversing, trying to figure out what it was. It was big and weighed a lot, as large sticks were cracking under its feet. We were quite nervous as we threw out theories to each other. Could it be a deer? Maybe a large stray dog? I don't think so. It's walking like a biped from the sound of its steps. That thing is heavy. Listen to it mow through the brush. We all know that it was impossible for a human to walk through that area. We knew how dense it was, let alone in the pitch black. It continued towards us until it was maybe 20 feet from the edge of the brush line, then it stopped. Nothing but silence. It was watching us. We started to yell towards it, "Who's there? You don't want to F with us." We started freaking out and decided it was time to leave. And just as we were gathering our things, it began trudging off into the forest again back down the hill. We doused the fire and hightailed it out of there. And I remember I kept looking behind us with my flashlight as we hurried down the dirt road, half expecting it to jump us. Still to this day, my friends and I can't explain what it was. All I know, it was big and very heavy and went through the brush that would challenge any machete. I don't think it was a human. Anyway, keep the videos coming. Love the content. Sincerely, Craig. Okay, man. Gotcha. Shared. And you know what I'm going to say. You know what it was. This stage of the game, you know what it was. You email into us, you know what it is. Here's another one. titled, "A Big Thank You." Mr. Steve, I'm just writing you this quick email to say thanks, and that's not just coming from me, it's coming from thousands. I used to be labeled a researcher. That word just makes me cringe when I hear it. I'm just an enthusiast, interested in the topic and just looking for more answers. I used to think going out into the woods with my camera and filming was going to get me what I needed. Well, I was wrong. I'm getting more knowledge from your channel in 1 year, more than I've gotten since I started researching the topic in 2014. What you're doing should have been done a long time ago. You're helping people, and that's what matters. I've sent you another email about one of my encounters you asked about involving a see-through saran wrap thing I saw in the forest. It was my most unusual encounter. I've had a couple others, including a couple close-up sightings, and those are relatively boring compared to most, and we've heard it all before. So I won't take up any more of your time, so more people can share. You're doing a very valuable thing, Steve. Keep up the good fight, and God bless you, brother. Chris Dickinson from Oklahoma. I appreciate those kind words, man, but I have a feeling I read this. Damn it. All right, we got there's another chunk of email attached to this, so I'm going to read that too. If I've read it, you guys, I apologize, but there's nothing I can do about it. And this is titled Bigfoot / Saran Wrap Entity Encounter. Hello, Steve. First, let me say that we all appreciate everything you're doing. Okay, I got that. My condolences to the horse. I got that. Anyway, you asked if anyone else has had an encounter with these see-through-like saran wrap entities, like in the Predator movie. Well, yes, I have, but mine was a little different and odd. To give you a quick catch-up about me, let's just first say that I am not a researcher. That word just makes me cringe when I hear it. Hold on a minute. It's sounding familiar again. Nope, this is all new. Okay. I consider myself a crazy enthusiast. I say crazy because not too many people enter the woods to go looking for these things, but I do. Some people get their kicks riding roller coasters. I get mine looking for monsters in the woods. I've had numerous encounters and a couple of sightings. They're all relatively boring compared to most, so I'll stick to the story at hand. If you want me to email you about my Bigfoot encounters, I can do so later. Also, these all took place in Oklahoma. Now back to my story. So I was out in one of my areas with my girlfriend looking around. Yes, I'm very lucky to have a girlfriend who will do this sort of thing with me. That's hard to find these days, but she likes it. Anyway, we were slowly inching our way through the forest. We go stealth sometimes because there are a lot of whitetail around here, and I like seeing how close we can get and seeing what big bucks I spook up. We were coming up on a ridge line that overlooked a draw that dropped down below us, which helps us to see deep into the forest. As we get to the crest, something shiny catches my eye. What I see next still baffles me. If you were to hold up a huge sheet of see-through saran wrap like the size of a 10 by 10 tarp, that is exactly what I saw shimmering next to some pine trees, almost like it was hanging on a clothesline with two clothespins holding it at the top. I then noticed someone or something moving about around it. That's when this thing collapsed on itself and was gone. I watched this thing for about 30 to 45 seconds before it collapsed and went away. I was trying to get my girlfriend to look at it to confirm what I was seeing, but by the time I had her looking in the right spot, it was gone. We walked over to where I believe this took place, and I remember feeling a static feeling, like the environment was charged with an energy. I never did see anything else. But this area is not far from where I had my close encounter, with a reddish-colored Sasquatch. I was setting up a static camera. When I turned around, one was looking at me through some trees. I watched it for about 4 to 5 seconds, and then I turned to get my partner's attention, and when I looked back, it had completely disappeared. Just vanished. Didn't even hear it move off. Anyway, I have more stories. I also do have a YouTube channel if anyone would like to see the areas I'm talking about. Just remember, guys, I'm not a researcher. I'm an enthusiast. Most researchers are lame, big-headed, know everything, and are doing it for the wrong reason. When, really, every single researcher out there should have a pissed-off mentality about being lied to our whole lives. And start helping people who've had encounters instead of trying to have their own. Anyway, Keep doing what you're doing, brother. And if you ever want a side channel that has your back, I'd be willing to help you read emails or whatever I can do to take some of the work off your back. My YouTube channel is just a way for me to document and save my findings and hikes in the woods, whether I film anything of interest or not. That way I can delete it from my SD card and film some more. If anyone wants to check it out. Okay, I'm not sure who this is, but I don't promote channels. Sorry. Alright. Anyway, that's my encounter with the saran wrap thing. It almost looked like a portal, and that thing went in it. I never told anyone that. You're the first. Well, take care, Steve. Keep the videos coming, and if you need help, I got your back. Sincerely, Chris Dickinson. Chris, I appreciate that, man. Don't be insulted. I'm not sharing your channel. I just don't share people's channels. Usually, it's got to be something pretty compelling to make my gut tell me to share somebody's channel. And I appreciate the offer of help. That's very kind. Now, who's next? This is titled My Father's Story Second Attempt. Hey Steve, my wife and I just sent a small donation in support for your work. It's a token of our appreciation of your tenacious pursuit of the truth. I think you know by now that the space you created has provided the first chance for so many honest people to share their experiences. The ridicule and character assassination for relating their stories has prevented them from ever sharing again, until now. Regardless of the outcome of this project, your impact on the well-being of your contributors will be worth it all. Appreciate those kind words, man. And now to my contribution, or rather my father's. My father related this story to me when I was a teenager. My father would also have been a teenager at the time of this event. It took place in the mid to late 1960s in rural northern New Hampshire. It happened at night, during an almost whiteout condition blizzard. My father was being driven home after, what I remember, was a church event. His mother was driving the car, and she was accompanied in the front seat by a fairly overweight adult female friend. My father rode in the back seat. They had to crawl down the road home, as the snowfall was obscuring my grandmother's view. My father said they crested a hill and my grandmother slammed on the brakes. As he looked through the windshield, he observed a huge bipedal creature standing in the middle of the road. My father said he was enormous, at least 8 feet tall. He said it had mainly light-colored hair over its body. This sounds cliche, and sounds like I'm forming this story to mimic other stories on your channel, but he said the creature's eyes seemed to emit their own glow. You know what? It's truth, and that's why your story is going to resemble others, because it's truth. Patterns. He said they were red. I've seen numerous animals' eyes, hundreds to be honest, reflecting headlights. They are typically white or yellowish white, never red. Anyway, at that point, my father said the overweight friend in the front seat squealed and crawled into the back seat beside him. She then cowered near the floor. If I remember correctly, the being then roared at them. The following part was the part that really stuck in my dad's memory. The being was standing in the middle of the 2-lane road with 6-foot shoulders on each side. He said the being took 2 steps, and in those 2 steps was able to clear 1 lane of the road, the shoulder, and leap over the adjacent snowbank. Steve, my dad said the snowbanks were at least 6 feet tall. My father said my grandmother's friend was absolutely hysterical the whole ride home. I'm asking you, don't use my name. My father has no idea I'm relaying this story. I haven't asked permission. He was a career military officer and was the most fearless man I've ever known. Without giving much away, he was an attack helicopter pilot in Vietnam and an integral part of the command structure of the New Hampshire National Guard. Thanks again for making this space, Steve. Keep up the important work and all the best. Don't use my name. I got you, man. Wow. Now I wonder, you know, seeing how where your father's went in life with his career after he was shown that suppressed truth so early in life, and he went on to be in the position he was in as a career military man, obviously with access to possible files, obviously maybe possibly with access to people to ask questions to about what he may have known all his life. And I wonder what else he figured out is what I'm getting to. I wonder what he learned of it, or if he just filed it back in his memory and kept it there and didn't share it at work. Who knows, right? So I don't know if too many people in the military talk to each other at work about this shit. You know what I mean? I mean, the people that I know in the military, they are pretty strict on speaking of anything that goes on outside of what they're supposed to be doing. And in Canada, that is especially true when it holds truth to how the military speak of the criminal that's in charge of capital K Canadistan right now. Anyway, I really appreciate that share. Big time. Who's next? What do we got? Excuse me. I'd like to share an experience I had as a teenager. Hi Steve, my name is Craig. I just recently subscribed to your channel, like the content, and listening to people's stories as well as your own. I'd like to share with you and your listeners an experience I had when I was 17 in 1979. I grew up in the Santa Cruz Mountains of California. I was with two friends of mine, and we had hiked to a place called Eagle Del Peak in Lompico. We called it Bald Eagle. This area bordered a wildlife refuge called Lac Lamond Reservoir. The area around Eagle Del was not accessible as it was heavily forested and an absolute poison oak hell. It was about midnight, and we had a big bonfire going. This is back in the 70s, and the area was not really developed yet. There was a dirt road that led to the top of the mountain, and at the top it had been bulldozed, so there was an open area on top, maybe 50 feet in diameter. That was the only way to get up there. We had planned to camp for the night, and were having a great time until we heard something crashing through the forest in the distance. We didn't think much of it until it started getting closer and closer. It was coming up the hill from Lac Lamond side. As it got closer, we became concerned. We were conversing, trying to figure out what it was. It was big, and it weighed a lot as large sticks were cracking under its feet. We were quite nervous as we threw out theories to each other. Could it be a deer? Maybe a large stray dog? I don't think so. It's walking like a biped from the sound of its steps. That thing is heavy. Listen to it mow through the brush. We all knew that it was impossible for a human to walk through that area. We knew how dense it was, let alone in the pitch black. It continued towards us until it was maybe 20 feet from the edge of the brush line, and then it stopped. Nothing but silence. It was watching us. We started to yell towards it. Who's there? You don't want to F with us. We started freaking out and decided it was time to leave. And just as we were gathering our things, it began trudging off into the forest again, back down the hill. We doused the fire and hightailed it out of there, and I remember I kept looking behind us with my flashlight as we hurried down the dirt road, half expecting it to jump us. Still to this day, my friends and I can't explain what it was, and all I know is it was big, was very heavy, and went through brush that would challenge any machete. I don't think it was a human. Anyway, keep the videos coming. I love the content. Sincerely, Craig. Okay, Craig. Excuse me, I appreciate you sending that in, man. And by now, I'm pretty certain you know what that was, right? You know what it was. And you are a member of the Club of No Return. Nothing you can do about it. Crazy. All right, here's one more. This is titled Hairy Man in 1974. Hi, Steve. I'm writing to you about a story that happened a very long time ago. It was around the summer of 1974, and I was around 6 or 8 years old. And every summer, my family would spend the summer vacation up north, where my dad would hunt moose every fall and fish every summer. Here's the story. You need to imagine that there were no paved roads to get there. Every summer, the roads would be washed away by beaver dams and had to be rebuilt by shovel and my father and friends. We just spent an hour and a half to go to a spot to pick blueberries by doom buggy. We just got there, 15 minutes. I was following my father, and he was able to glance over a small bump. He grabbed my arm and told me to go back to the doom buggy. Like said, we just spent over an hour to get there, and just after 15 minutes we were leaving. I told the entire family to get in. My mother was asking my father, were there a black bear? My mom was freaking every time she heard the word bear. Why? What the hell? What's going on? All the way back. My father never said a word. I was sitting beside him in the front, and I was asking questions too, and he seemed completely off and confused. My mother was even asking if he was okay or sick. The night came, and I remember waking up, and both my parents were talking, and I heard my father say, "I saw a naked man covered with hair." "What?" my mother said. "Are you drunk? Were you drinking? Or are you going crazy?" Now, I have to imagine a naked man in these woods. He would be devoured by mosquitoes, black flies, and horse flies in a matter of minutes. We left the next day, even though we had at least a week left, and it took 6 hours to get there. At the barrier of the ZEC in French, Z-E-C in French. Traduction means Controlled Harvesting Zone, where a game warden was stationed for the first time. I saw my father stop and get in the small cabin to talk. He talked for about 30 minutes, and when he came back, he seemed pissed. I suppose the game warden told him he was drunk or imagining things. That's what pissed him off. That was the last summer I would spend there, and my father went for the last time that fall and never went back after. This was an area that you had to pay every year to access the camping sites. Only 6 families had access and would rotate the access to each other in succession, so only one group had access at a time. Sorry about the syntax. I'm French and English is my second language. Okay, gotcha. There you go. I'm guessing this is in Canada. And there's another one, right? And another typical reaction. Now, that's it. I gotta go find some food. You guys, something you want to share with us through me, share my story at howtohunt.com. Get it to us, all right? Just get it out, get it shared, get that truth flowing, no matter what.